When you build a great team, everything is easier. To not create a culture of victims, because that's a lot that you see in the market, When you take care of the shareholders, you are taking care of the stakeholders.
Be confident, be articulate, know your audience, prepare.
Because when you have a great team, you can do amazing things.
So it's good to kind of keep that circle going where you kind of mentor people, but then they become leaders themselves.
I met my partners in the university. We studied industrial engineering together. And we always had this kind of, the curiosity of saying, we should launch a business. And we were curious about ideas and we were talking about it. At one moment, we said, okay, let's get serious about it. And we all had our corporate jobs. And at night, we decided to meet like 3 times a week from 7 p.m. to 12 p.m., at night to 12 a.m. at night, 4 hours. And we started working on that, and we decided to launch the company, a distribution company, logistics.
Okay. Logistics. How many were you? You and like one other person, or was
3.
it like a group? 3, a total of 3.
3 of us. At the beginning, we were the 3 of us, and we said, okay, let's do it. And it was like, okay, how much money we can, put in the company. And then it was like, okay, even if all of this money goes to the, to the trash, we waste all the money, our friendship will still remain. And we said, okay, yes. And, are we willing to act according to our values? Yes. And that was, the premises. And from there, we said, okay, let's do it. And we've been in this journey for the last 12 years around.
Is that all? The last 12 years? That's a success by any measure. I mean, God knows there's a lot of marriages that don't make it to 7 years. So 12 is definitely a win. But that's the first one. You weren't happy with just one. You wanted to see and stretch your legs a little bit and see how far you can go. Now, here you are running your first business. How did that lead to you saying, I got some extra time, let me do another one? What was that next business idea?
Yeah, but, during these 12 years, okay, we began this first company. And then 5 years later, we said, okay, we have to diversify, because that's a concept that we all need to, to put in place. And the first business is about plastic additive that we add to the bags to make it biodegradable.
Okay.
So a plastic bag that usually degrades in 100 years, you can set the time to degrade, and it degrades in 3 years, in 5 years. So the supermarket bags there's our brand in there,
Really?
Yes. Okay. Well, we are in the plastic industry, but then we said, okay, we need to diversify. And then we move all the way to another industry that is a personal care products,
Okay.
And now the other business is a personal care line that is about collagen.
Okay.
It's pills, it's drinkable, it's another line. It's completely another line, and it's personal care products.
I'm gonna get a little cream here for us here in the audience.
Yes, absolutely.
Just a little something. All right, so now you have a line of personal grooming products and creams and pills and supplements and whatnot. So now you have these very different businesses running simultaneously. Is it the same team that you started the logistics company with? Are they the same team that's working with you in this direction? From the bags and also now? Really?
Yes.
That's highly unusual.
That's the thing that I like to, to emphasize about the team, because when you have a great team, you can do amazing things. And that's what I like the most about, my partners, because we've been able to do great things.
So your focus has been less on the business you're starting and more on developing the relationships you have with your partners. And through that teamwork, you're just creating new things left and right, like a little empire. I mean, this is amazing. This is really amazing.
Yes, and I apply that not only into the ventures, but also, in the academic career. It's the same way. I really focus on building a great team. The team here in the university, in the other regions, in Panama, for example, is building. The team. When you build a great team, everything is easier. The same is with the professors. When you have a great team of professors, you don't have to be, always thinking about, well, how are the students? Because if you know that you have a great team of professors, the professors will be, thinking about how they can add the most value to the students. So that's kind of a principle for me, in this building relationships, but at all levels. Of
course. One of the things that is of personal interest to me is organizational behavior, leadership structures. And, there's 5 main structures that are out there, from authoritative to transformational to, and there's no good or bad one. They're just depending on the circumstances, which applies. Your team that you work with for these ventures, what kind of leadership structure do you have with them? I mean, is it completely collaborative or democratic, or is there like a team leader and everybody else is more in a support capacity? It's more a situational thing, I can say, because it depends on the situation. We can take different roles. For example, we have a CEO, and one of the 3 partners is the CEO. The CEO is not me, I am, I have my full-time job. But this CEO, when he gets into some things that he's not usually like the best at, he's always like, Jaly, your expertise is on this, and I need help with this. So please, let's meet, and I need help with this. And this happened last week, for example, and we meet, and I said like, okay, let's build a case, blah, 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 and we fix it. So it's more like depends on the situation. And I think that's the collaboration. That's the success. No, I absolutely agree. The best teams are the ones where everyone is the team leader, depending on what's going on. If it's a financial problem, so-and-so is the team leader for this issue and we're following their lead. If it's a manufacturing problem, the manufacturing manager, is the team leader because they're the ones who know best what to do. That's fascinating. That's when the humbleness has to be there, because if you believe that because you are the CEO, you have to know everything, right. It's not right, it's, you can recognize that that's not your area of expertise and there's someone that can do it. Right. No, absolutely. It just makes me wonder, some of the best leadership styles that I've seen is where the leader defers to the judgment of their team members, even though they may make the final call, because their job is to keep the pace and to keep the direction. And sometimes you have 2 different people that are competing equally. So if you have a manufacturing problem, but that's affecting sales, well, technically both departments are equally valuable to the company, and the CEO has to determine which of the 2 to follow for the sake of the vision of the company. So that's a very interesting position to be in. Now, I'm just curious, though, it's not just you and your partners. I mean, you have workers, you have people that are, making the imprintment, and you have the, people in the factory that are making the bags, I guess, or the people making the products, for personal use. How do you manage, or the CEO rather, how do you all manage, having this vast amount of people, and how many people are we talking about, just so our audience has an idea the scale of this, because it doesn't usually take a lot to be a huge success. I am kind of a little bit outside, the operation, because it's my partner Mario that is like the CEO, and he's in charge of the whole operation. I am just like, I am in the board. I am in the day-to-day basis. He's the one that is in charge, but in those critical decisions, he's the one that is like, Jaly,
I need help with this, or the finance part. I am like a key part in taking those decisions. Or in terms of, where right now we're in a legal thing there with a customer that's not behaving like in the best way. So we have to take a decision if we go to trial or not. And, those kind of decisions are the ones that I have to take place in. And I can say that I have my role is more like on the board, and on the board, I can say that one of the roles it is to ensure that we have the right talent to run the company, and then in that role, I can say that we have been working on the processes to ensure that we have the best talent we can have.
So talking about talent, DEI is one of the buzzwords in business over the last few years. Diversity, inclusion, and everything that goes with that. So, I am fully familiar with the politics, the DEI issues in the United States. What are the issues that you're mainly facing in Guatemala? Because, every geographic zone is different. They have their own cultures and religions and race relations. And so I wanted to know, what does DEI look like for someone in Guatemala and basically Central and South America, because those issues are very different than North America?
I don't know if I am in a bubble, maybe, and I live most of the culture that I have lived in is the culture of where the university I work with and or my environment, like the people that surround me. But we work more in a culture that is like meritocratic. It's not kind of DEI or related to that. It's more like, if you have the merits too, let's do it. It doesn't have to be related if you're a woman or if you're a man or if you race or whatever. It's not related to that. It's more like, okay, my team is mostly women because they are the best fit for the team, but whatever.
But if they had been men, you would have hired them anyways.
Exactly. Yes. And some people might get surprised, but at least here I can say the relationship is not like 80% men, 20% women. It's all the way around, but it's about meritocracy. It's not about other type of metrics. But I don't know. I can only talk about what's around me, but I cannot generalize, to the country or anywhere else.
No, of course. No, I ask because at least here, and I know you're familiar with this, but hiring managers are in an awkward position because they are being put, to task in order to have more diverse hiring practices. And, anyone that has studied organizational behavior understands that, it's a cultural thing. How you pick people at the end is something that should have already been permeating the entire institution and not something that you just tack on, so that you could check off a box and say, well, I did something diverse today. And so hiring managers are kind of in a quandary how best to go about it. Should they go for the best qualified person, irrespective of their background, or do they go for people that meet a minimum requirement of competency? And then from those, let's say two, then choose the one that perhaps would exemplify a more diverse hiring practice, even if they weren't necessarily the most qualified, yet sufficiently qualified. Because at the end of the day, even though you can source where you get your talent applying from, at the end of the day, you're kind of limited to who applies. I mean, that happens in the United States. There are certain positions where only women apply, or only Black men apply, or only white women apply, or whatever the case may be. And the hiring manager is kind of at the mercy of the applicants coming in. And so there's a lot of confusion as to the best way to go about it. And so they go for extremes just so that they could say they did a diverse hiring.
Exactly.
So,
we go for qualification.
Exactly. So down there, at least, meritocracy rules. It's about who is the best qualified for the job, irrespective of diversity issues. It doesn't matter.
Exactly. Yes.
That is a beautiful future, and I'm glad that you're living in it now, because that's how it should be. That's how it very much should be. The best qualified person wins. That's interesting. So let me ask you, as an educator, and I say this because you're now teaching in the College of Business. So you're teaching the business leaders, not only of your region, but wherever else they go. A lot of people went and got their doctorate at FIU, and then they went off to another state or another country. And so they're spreading that brain power, that knowledge. So what is your philosophy with education, as far as your approach, as far as when you're dealing with students and you're mentoring them and you're tutoring them? What is your general approach with them? How do you see these students to you?
The university has an approach that is, we're called like the house of freedom, but that freedom, we always say that it comes with a cost. And the cost is their responsibility. And the responsibility understood as the ability to respond to. You always have the ability to respond to the challenges that present at your life. So circumstances will come and they will not be the best or, the more satisfying ones. But you will always have the ability to respond to those circumstances. So the approach in the courses will be that students will face a lot of challenges and they will have to respond to those challenges with their best of their ability. They will get their tools, we will give them the best tools to respond to those challenges. But at the end is to not create a culture of victims, because that's a lot that you see in the market, No, I'm the victim, of the circumstances. No, the idea is that you are not a victim, that you can respond to the best of your ability, but you can do something about it. So in the classroom is that, you are faced with some challenges, but you have the ability to respond to those challenges. And that's what we try to do in the classroom.
I appreciate that. That's a common refrain here, which is life is like poker. You can't choose the cards that life deals you, but you can definitely choose how you want to respond to them and how you want to use them to your advantage. So I'm glad to see that some things are universal. I want to talk about your board experience because some of our members are just getting their degree or they have their businesses starting to run and they're going back to school in order to learn the things that they missed out in order to make their lives easier and more efficient, perhaps optimal. And I wanted to know, how has your experience been being on so many different boards? How do you see yourself as a board member? Are you a steward, someone that's taking care of something like a responsibility? Or are you a functionary, someone that your goal is to just make this work? What is your approach? Because everyone is different.
Yeah, no, in my case, it's more like a steward. It's a lot of responsibility because, at the end, you are appointed by the shareholders. And right now there's this case of OpenAI that is on all the news. Sam Altman that
yes.
that everyone here in the audience has seen the news and how one decision of the board has created all these 5 days of different news and coming and going and putting at risk a huge company. Because one decision of the board, and it's a huge responsibility. But at the end, every board, has his own protocol and the responsibilities that they have set in place for the members. But usually, it's about the accountability of the top management team, mitigating risks, ensuring that the company is led by the best talent that they can have. And you have to care about the shareholders. And sometimes when I say something like this, it's like, no, but you have to take care of the whole stakeholders. Yes, but and sometimes it's misunderstood because when you take care of the shareholders, you are taking care of the stakeholders. The market is very wise, When you take care of one of them, when you're making value for the shareholders, automatically you are making value for all the stakeholders because you cannot make value for the shareholders if you don't make value for the rest of them, for the whole the stakeholders. So at the end is a huge responsibility, but at the end, when things are done well, it's very satisfying too because it's part of creating jobs, is the economy. There's a lot of families that beneficiate with the companies that create jobs at the end.
No, of course, of course. As we turn a corner into our last few minutes of the show, I wanted to ask you a few things on a more personal level that you could share from your experience. The first is, what are the things that you think an individual needs to develop when they're starting their career? Because again, a lot of our viewers are either, well entrenched and they want to pivot into a new direction, or they're starting out, altogether. And the classes are great. Professors are wonderful. They teach you their subjects, but they don't really give you the nitty gritty. And they don't tell you, by the way, get a new suit, get a new outfit, polish your communication skills. Tell us what you feel are the most important things that someone should work on personally in order to prepare for a new career.
I receive a lot of students here in my office, and usually when a student is starting a master program, I am a coach, and I usually start with them a conversation about how they see themselves in the future and which are the gaps that they have and that they see between today and the point where they want to be, and defining those gaps is important, because when you define the gap, you have many roads to get to the other side. You can define the road, whatever. There's 100 possible ways. But what is important is defining the gap, because when you define the gap, you can find the resources, you can find the way, you can find the people, you can find anything. But if you don't know the gap, you don't know where you want to go, it's very hard to find the resources, the people, how you can get there. So for me, the first part is you have to define that. And if you need help to define that, okay, that's the first step. And once we define that, okay, let's define the road. And once we define the road, let's build an actionable plan. And once we have the actionable plan, okay, let's review it. Let's see how we're going with the plan. So we can know that we are advancing and how we're approaching to closing the gap. That's my best recommendation, because if you don't know where you're going, or you'll stay where you are, or you will go anywhere.
No, of course. Before I get to my final question, I have Kazra Tavakoli at the controls. He has a question or two to give you. Kazra, if you could let us know what those questions are, we are ready.
Right. So a question that I had was, as far as meeting the qualifications and going as far as the employment process, hiring board positions, working with different individuals, how would you go about meeting those qualifications? And most importantly, what factors do you use to judge someone based on those qualifications?
Perfect. Thank you, Kazra. For me, okay, on one side is your CV and your professional qualification, your technical part. But the part that makes me decide on someone, once the criteria is met, is the value part, the values part. For me, the values that you are trustable, that you are accountable, that you're responsible, that your values is what define the person. If we don't make a match in terms of values, the relationship is not going to work. And it happened to me in terms of, here in the university, or with my partners, or my ventures, or in anywhere. Is one thing is, the technical part, but the other, in the personal part, is all related to values.
No, it always comes back to that. My last question for you, Jaly, and if you'll indulge me, everyone that has been on the show is without question a success in their respective fields. They are experts. They have terminal degrees, with their doctorates. There's no question that these are the people you go to if you want to know how to be a success. But one thing that you usually don't hear about are the sacrifices that individuals have suffered along the way. If you don't mind, what is perhaps one or two challenges that you've overcome, and how did you overcome them? Because everybody's different. Some people did not overcome their challenges. They ended up getting divorces. They ended up getting a heart attack. So I'm just curious, what challenges did you immediately face and how have you been able to overcome them?
For example, for my doctoral degree, I was the only student traveling to the US from outside, the US. I was the only international student having to do the sacrifices, traveling once a month, having, this full-time job and traveling and going back and forth. And I can say that we all have stressful jobs, because in this society today is kind of difficult. But in that sense, I think that's kind of sacrificing, because it's not that I was here and it was just commuting from one place to another. And at that moment, I remember I got some health issues, because it comes at a cost. So at some point, I can say the cost has been some health issues that with the time I have learned how to deal more healthy with them. But I think that, as you say, there's always a cost, and we have to learn how to deal with the stressful situations. And there will be times that we have to be conscious that we have to make those sacrifices, because life is like that. There are times where sacrifices have to be made. So after those sacrifices, you can have more stability. You can enjoy life in a different way and have that, hope that, once the stressful part is gone, everything is going to be better. And that's what I have experienced, after a stressful time, after the darkest part of the night, there's always come a beautiful day ahead. So that's what this has been for me.
Well, you've been amazing. Thank you, Dr. Chea, for joining us today and sharing your invaluable insights. Your experiences and your wisdom has certainly enriched our understanding of academic leadership and entrepreneurship. I also want to extend my deepest gratitude to all our guests for tuning in. As we wrap up today's episode, I wish everyone a happy, healthy, and safe Thanksgiving. Enjoy this time with your loved ones and remember to reflect on the things that bring us gratitude. We'll see you next week for another engaging episode. As always, keep your finger on the pulse. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.